Brothers and sisters, I'd like to present our next speaker, Robert Buckley, the president of the Westchester County Corrections Superior Office Association and vice president of the Affiliated Police Association of Westchester County.
Thank you very much. I'm proud to be here with the brothers and sisters, labor unions, and wow, I didn't realize there were so many out there. I got a message for you. I think it's a very important message, and I want to let you know who we really are fighting against. I have an urgent message to the middle class here today and across America. We are at war, and the war is an undeclared war against the middle class. The war is being perpetuated by the right-wing conservatives and corporate elite from across America. If we continue to sit passively by and assume this movement will pass us by with no collateral damage, we are mistaken. This movement against the middle class has the potential to go down as history as the time period in which America allowed for the elimination of the middle class. We must stand up and be heard. We must send a message to those in elected office that we are their constituents and the people they represent. To the right-wing conservatives and the elite corporations, we have a message for you. Today is the beginning of the middle class no longer sitting by passively while you attempt to destroy us. We will be heard. Are the players in the war against the middle class, and what is their agenda? The war against the middle class is being funded by right-wing extremists, elite corporations, and extremely rich businessmen like David Koch and Charles Koch. Collectively, they are worth $45 billion. That is what we are up against. What is the war against the middle class, and what is it all about? It is very simple. You have very greedy billionaires and elite corporations who want to suppress the middle class and increase their bottom line. One of the biggest players in the war against the middle class is a group formed by the Koch brothers called Americans for Prosperity. Americans for Prosperity have offices. Americans for Prosperity have offices in 32 different states, including New York. When Governor Scott Walker from Wisconsin or Governor Chris Christie from New Jersey when they need help with their anti-worker message, they call the Koch brothers or American for Prosperity, and the next thing you know, there are 20 buses filled with paid demonstrators showing up supporting the agenda of the right-wing conservatives. For the record, there are no paid demonstrators here. We're all volunteers. Killing my 7 minutes. Let me go. How they control the politicians and convince them to pursue their agenda. I'll speak a little faster. These elite corporations and billionaires are used to getting what they want either by purchasing it or with the influence they possess. And when they can't get what they want up front, they create organizations that give the appearance of being community do-good groups. They formed Americans for Prosperity. They put together governmental think tanks. They formed advisory committees to the government. The corporations and conservatives stack these groups with their people, and these groups make recommendations to governments on how they can run more effective government. These groups are the ones who propose many of the anti-worker proposals that we have seen lately. Talk about letting the fox into the henhouse.
Whoa!
In New York, you have several powerful conservative groups who have unlimited funding and influence. These are the groups that are calling for several changes that would adversely affect workers in New York. Some of these changes that they're recommending are repealing the Tribal Amendment, repealing the Wicks Law. They are calling for a New York State Constitutional Convention. They are demanding a new Tier 6 with a 401k component to it. They are demanding that workers amend their contract language with regard to retirement benefits, salaries, and health coverage. These conservative groups use catchphrases like, "We are fighting for free markets," and then they claim they want to make government smaller. The free markets that they're talking about are not the free markets that you and I talk about when we hear the phrase free market. The free market they are talking about is the freedom to influence policymakers, the freedom to privatize government services, the freedom to have their friends in government to use their powers to deregulate and change the rules in favor of the businesses or corporations, and the freedom to have a corporate office overseas so they can do business in the United States and avoid paying taxes to the United States of America. So when you hear them say free markets, remember, the free markets they are talking about is the freedom to change the rules of the game, the freedom to stack the deck in favor of their companies. And last but not least, they're also looking for the freedom to crush labor. When they talk about making government smaller, what they are saying is, let's make government smaller by privatizing functions so we can make enormous amounts of money. They want to create a vacuum so well-connected corporations can profit by functions that are currently provided by government. The conservative movement is all about big business and raking in more money. The conservatives are the same ones who want to privatize Social Security, and right here in New York, they want to instill a Tier 6 for public sector employees with a 401k component to it. A new Tier 6 with a 401k component and privatizing Social Security would bring a windfall of money to their friends in Wall Street. When big business backs itself into a corner and can no longer function in the free market, as they call it, what do? They ask for government bailouts. Think about Bear Stearns, AIG, Citicorp, Bank of America, Enron, JP Morgan. Combined, they have received $500 billion in bailouts. If you think New York is safe from the anti-Walker movement, you are wrong. Last week, you had former Assemblyman Richard Brodsky and John Faso debating the right of unions for collective bargaining at the Rockefeller Institute in Albany. John Faso was stating that New York should go down the road of Wisconsin. Richard Brodsky laid out the facts as why New York must continue to have the right to collective bargaining. Folks, America is being hoodwinked, and we must come together and do something about it. Today is a great start. Thank you for attending this great rally for the middle class. I have one last comment and then I'll be done. On this day in 1968, 43 years ago, Martin Luther King was assassinated. And in respect to Dr. Martin Luther King, he was much more than a civil rights leader. Dr. King was also a strong advocate for workers' rights, and he was ahead of his time regarding issues that we are still trying to come to terms with today. In a speech about right-to-work laws in 1961, Martin Luther King said the following, I quote, "In our glorious fight for civil rights, we must guard against being fooled by false slogans as right to work. It provides no rights and no work. Its purpose is to destroy labor unions and the freedom of collective bargaining. We demand this fraud be stopped." Dr. Martin Luther King. Thank you very much.